Hi and welcome back to Finders Beepers History Seekers. Now, this week, something a little bit different. Now, you might have seen a video that I put out, a short on YouTube and on Facebook and a couple of other places, talking about somebody's grave in this graveyard. Right, I just thought I would show you this, especially for our American viewers. I thought it might be something that you can look into as much as I have. So, I'm in the graveyard in the village where I used to live. And I often come and sit in here because it's beautiful and it's lovely to edit. But I found this grave, which I've seen loads of times before. So yeah, looking across the valley, there's the grave of Emily Henry Wraith. Now, first of all, that's quite strange that her middle name is Henry. I don't really get that. It could be a double-barrel surname. But she was born in Darfield, which is the village that we're in at the moment. And she died in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And at the bottom, it says what looks like Harvard College. Now, I've had so much help from you guys and also done a lot of research myself to find out about the lady in this grave up here. Let's go and talk about it and look into it because it's so good. Now, this is Darfield Churchyard in Barnsley in Yorkshire. Now, I've probably brought you to this place at the worst possible time because you can see everything is really overgrown. But what they tend to do here is let things grow for the butterflies and the insects and stuff like that. And then they cut it down later on towards the summer, which is what they're about to do now. Plane flying overhead up there as well. So yeah, it's a little bit overgrown at the moment. But some of the history in here, some of the graves, and some of the things I found out over the years are absolutely brilliant. Now, I used to live in this village a few years ago. Like I say, it's called Darfield, and it's one of those villages that gets overlooked, but the amount of history that is knocking about in this place is crazy. So what I decided to do, I just noticed a grave up here and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna look into this because it's quite a strange thing to have on it, and I'll show you why in a minute. But what I might do, if you enjoy this video and it's something you like, I might start researching a few more of these graves because there's some good history. Anyway, let's get up and find Emily. Now, often when I'm filming look back videos, I go and sit just down there on a little bit of stone and I film them down there because it's just beautiful in here. It's so nice, so relaxing, and you can get chilled out. And you have to walk up this way to get out, which means I have to walk past this grave every single time I come here. Now, it says, in loving memory of Emily Henry Wraith. That piqued my interest straight away, with her middle name being Henry, which I thought, is it a double-barrel surname? And when I've looked on Ancestry, it brings her up as Henry, but it's not a double-barrel surname. So I'm a bit confused still with that. That's still something I need to find out. Right, editing Matt here in bed as usual. Right, I've found out the Henry connection. So she actually, it's really strange. She was supposed to be getting married when she got back to America, to Henry, her boyfriend at the time, or fiance. So they've added his name as her middle name, not changed the surname, just added his middle name onto there. And on the paperwork, I've got a photograph of the death certificate, but it says next to it as well that on the paperwork he put her down as his wife, even though they weren't actually married. It's all a little bit odd, but at least we've sort of found out the reasoning behind the name. Now, the beloved daughter of John and Mary Wraith, born at Darfield, June 22nd, 1883, died at Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA. Now, that was the thing that made me think, right, I need to look into this. Now, initially, I saw that and I thought, oh, look, January 1909, I think it is, Harvard College. That doesn't actually say Harvard, but it was Harvard. It says Harvard N-A-R-D, Harnard College. But I think that has been pulled off on purpose because they got it wrong. They got it wrong originally. And the reason it was probably rushed and changed and things happened to it was how she died. So the first thing I thought was, why oh why would there be someone from this sleepy little village in Barnsley in the middle of nowhere making their way over at the beginning of the 1900s over to America, to one of the most famous sort of colleges, universities in the world? Why? It makes no sense. So that's why I reached out to you guys to try and help me. Now, obviously, the grave itself has got some more information on it as well. Sarah Ann, who was the sister of Emily, who died September 13th, 1894, aged 9 years. So they've been rather unlucky to outlive all of their children by the sounds of things. But this was something I also noticed that was quite strange. So Sarah Ann, who died with Jesus, which is far better. That's such an odd thing to write on a gravestone. Anyway, back to Emily. So I put the video up and I got so much information sent through to me. It was crazy, which then took me on a journey which almost kind of brought me back to myself, which I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But it's been really, really strange. So first of all, I'm going to take you to where Emily first started to work. I think it's really strange as well that a lot of the buildings would have been here. Like, for example, my house, my old house, is up that direction and was built in 1901. So she will have known my street and my set of streets. All the houses behind that wouldn't have been there. She would have walked past where I lived. Which is really odd. This place, the Cross Keys, was built in the early 1800s, whereas this was built as a cinema a few years after she died. So things had changed. New houses behind wouldn't have been there. There would have been a set of terraces. But the butchers, which if I walk backwards, this building that I almost bought myself to turn these into a YouTube studio and have the house behind, that would have been there because that was the butchers from the early 1800s. So it's strange. It's strange how she would recognise parts of this village now today, but other parts would just look totally alien to her. Now, without being too intrusive, this is the butchers, and just over, if we look round this fence, the slaughterhouse and all the outbuildings round there would have been there, but this building wouldn't have. So it would have been open for people to see. Also, just moving a bit further up, the Darfield Village Club round this corner was built 2 years after she died. But the school, which is a little bit further down there with the point on it, that was built in the late 1800s. So, like I said, little different bits. Look, the reading rooms, that was one of the people from the church that had this built in the late 1800s. So it's so strange to think her eyes fell on exactly the same things that ours do today, but would look so weird. Now, as you can hear all the laughs and cheers of the kids out in the playground, just think, she probably went to this school back in the day, so she knew it round here. And we're making our way back up School Street now towards the hall where she worked. So I'm not just showing you these buildings for nothing. I'm just telling you she will have walked past these on her way to church on a Sunday, or maybe, like I said, when she was at school herself, she might have ended up going to this one, because there wasn't many about at the time. There was a little junior school up this end, but this was the main one for the area. But the sad thing is, this was also the same road a funeral procession will have come along, because it was brought from Middlewood Hall, which is where we are going now. If I ever actually stop talking about the stuff around here, we might finally get there. Now, as we get closer to the gatehouse for Middlewood Hall, you can see What once was a sleepy village is quite a large thoroughfare between Barnsley and Doncaster. This is Doncaster Road. Actually, I don't know if this is Doncaster Road or Saltersbrook because it changes round about here. But it used to be a very little quiet village, probably around about 1,000 people living there. Now there's over 10,000 people, and the hall itself has changed as well. It used to be one big main family with the workers that lived there. Now it's been split into flats, apartments, and also little cottages. So that's why there's a for sale sign just there. The hall isn't for sale itself, just one of the apartments, number 4 apparently. And that's last time I looked, I think it was up for about $500,000 for one of the flats. So yeah, this was the main entrance and the gatehouse into Middlewood Hall, leading down a drive, and also it's a private road, so we're being a bit naughty, but I don't care. Now all the land surrounding here, right for about 5 miles that way, no, maybe not as much as that, 3 miles that way, was owned by him. There's another hall off in that direction that was owned by Charles Taylor as well, the owner of this land, and the hall is just there, nestled within big hedges, so it can't be seen from most of the place. Now Emily actually lived in the grounds of Middlewood Hall. She moved out of her parents' house and she came to live down here, and I will show you her cottage very shortly. However, a lot of the staff worked and lived in the main hall. She lived separate to that, like I said, in a small cottage, and it was quite self-sufficient. They got a church, there's a little chapel here, they got all the little houses. The only thing that would be needed would be supplies, which would be brought in. I'm presuming there would have been like a cooperative society shop around here at the time, so they may needed to go out occasionally, but most of the time they could stay within here as much as they needed. Now a lot of the buildings on the site have been converted and changed over years. Like I said, that was one big building, it's now smaller houses. Also, the house that we're coming up to on the left is the house that is owned by Duncan Norvell. Now if you're from the UK, you probably, and you're of a certain age, you'll know who he is. He's a comedian and lives there.
Hi, editing Matt here again. Made a mistake with this one. He actually died in December last year, so I am really sorry about that. Rest in peace, Duncan Norvell. Chase me and all that.
But anyway, let me show you. Now I'm not supposed to be here, but that is the main hall from the back, but we will go around the front. I just don't want to go while that guy's there, but we'll carry on and go down the lane, I think. Now it's not like me to be a good boy and go places I'm supposed to, definitely going places I'm not supposed to, but there's a reason I want to come down here and show you a certain bit. So I don't want to get caught up there and get told that I have to leave before I can show you what I want to show you. Right, first of all, and I have got to be careful because people live here, but that is the cottage where Emily lived. That was her little cottage there. I actually don't know the name of the place, but it was on the map that I found, and that's the one that was indicated where she lived. Now this bit up here, you can't get in anymore, but it's the orchard. Now the orchard is where I sort of tie in with this story. Look, walled garden, it says on here, but it leads further down there to the orchard. Now this has recently been purchased, that's why there's gates on it now, it's been done up. But a few years ago I got speaking to one of the owners, and they said I was fine to go metal detect in the overgrown orchard, and it was really overgrown. And I also went into this walled garden. Now down near where that red thing is behind me, I got a really good signal, and I dug it up, and it was a whole host of Masonic medals, bits off a Masonic uniform, the clasps off a briefcase where it had been buried, and it was Charles Taylor's. Now Charles Taylor was Emily's boss, and that's why I sort of feel like I'm connected to this story, because I found his medals right down there that had been hidden after his death. And I think his death was in about 1912, 1913, something like that. Not long after, might have been a bit longer after that, not long after she died. And he was so well loved in this village. Like, everybody loved him. He wasn't like the lord of the manor that was a tyrant. Everybody loved him. They lined the streets where we've just come along School Street. Everybody in the village lined that. He didn't go to be buried in some fancy carriage, even though he owned so much land and so much money. He was put on the back of a hay carriage and taken up just like anybody else would. And it was amazing, an amazing story. And this is why I kind of love the guy. I think he was brilliant. But yeah, anyway, I found his medals in there, and I'll put some photos in of the stuff that I found so you can see yourself. But really, really, really good. But he was the boss, and he was the one that ultimately helped Emily move to America. Right, now we've seen what we've seen, the bits that we wanted to, I'll walk up here and film. And if I get kicked out, it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, you can see the size of the place. It was a big building, and it actually looks a lot more grand around the front of the place than it does the back. And I will try and include a bit of the front as well for you, even if it's just a photo, because it doesn't really show it up to be what it is. But look at the little windows at the top for the servants. It's so sunny I can't show you. And then the big arched window. I can't find the church. There's a chapel somewhere. I can't find it. I don't know why. I'm sure it's at the back corner somewhere. But yeah, there was a chapel here as well. It just got everything. Look how beautiful it is. Not that you can see because the sun's so bright. But yeah, look. Through to the gardens and everything. So nice. Right, I'm stupid. I'm looking for the chapel. It was the building right in front of me. So those buildings we saw first, that said have been converted, that's the old chapel, and that's the big window for it. So yeah, as you can see, all in one place together. Right, I've made my way around the other side of the house. I thought it'd be a bit silly to come all the way down here and not show you the front of the building, although I've just got a foot full of dirt from the field, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it very well anyway, because it's very overgrown at this side on purpose. But it's a very, very grand house. I can't even go over there to show you because there's a drop down there, but that's possibly the best I can do. What a shame. I'll have to put a photograph in for you. Now, with the hall behind me there, if I turn round, I've got some photographs somewhere, I don't know if I can find them, of them playing cricket on here. And I once went metal detecting on here and found a silver love token from the 1700s. Now, they were living there in the 1700s. Obviously not Charles, it will have been one of his relatives. But I would have thought they would have come out and had picnics on here. And then they would have made their way, not that I can see it today, across the path that cut up to the church. And that's where we're going now, back to the church. Now, only a few years after Emily had died, Charles, also her previous employer, Charles Taylor, also died, and he's buried just over there. When I did research on the medals, I found his grave, his whole family's graves. I found a member of his family that I gave the medals to. So it was quite interesting. So for that to then link, kind of feels like it's linked back to me. Maybe there's just me that feels like that. I don't know. I think it's because I've held his medals, and then that is a connection to him, and he has spoken to her. So therefore I feel like I'm connected to this story, even though I'm sort of not. It kind of feels like that. But yeah, his whole family is just buried under that dark tree there. There's no headstone, no markers or anything anymore. I don't know why there isn't, but there isn't. But going back to Emily and what happened next. Now, after 4 years of working at Middlewood Hall with Charles Taylor and his wife, Emily wanted to see the world. She wanted to do bigger and better things than a lot of the people around here. A lot worked down the mines. A lot of people did sort of manual labour jobs, and she wanted to be someone a little bit different to that. So this is where Emily's connection to Charles Taylor came in clutch. She got a really, really good connection there. She was friends with the family, his wife, the whole family. She'd worked for them for 4 years. And she wanted to go abroad and do bigger things. And he got the connections, not only in the UK, but abroad as well. He was friends with princes over here. There was a riding club that he set up further up the road. They used to race the horses across his land. And princes and lords used to come. And one of his contacts was Mr. Vanderbilt over in America. So he sorted it out for her to go and work over there. Now, she'd worked as Charles's housekeeper for quite a while, and I think she'd done other jobs as well, but the only information I could find was that she was the housekeeper, and I think you would have had to work your way up to that, to be honest. So they probably knew each other really, really well. So Charles knew her skills and knew what she was good at, and that's what she ended up doing over in America. She was the housekeeper. And that was at Harvard University. Now, they stayed in a massive, massive hall over there. Now, I've managed to find quite a few photos from the time. The building's now been demolished. It was called Randall Hall, and it's been demolished. However, there are a few photos from there. There's photos from after she was there for weddings and things like that. And it's quite hard to date some of them because it's just photos from the outside. But I'm pretty sure some of the photos that I've managed to find will have been while she was actually working there, which is crazy to think, really, that she will have been aware of maybe photographers about, and those photos are now being seen by us all this time later. Now, the Vanderbilt family, the people that she was working for, were a really strange lot. Like, not at the time. Like, they were well respected. They were the richest. The guy that started it all was the richest man in the world. He was today's Elon Musk, I suppose, or one of those lot. And basically, he started off from nothing. He had no money at all. And he built his wealth up, and he moved into the railroad and infrastructure stuff. So stuff to do with rail and moving things about. And his family got richer and richer until, like I said, he became the richest man in the world. That was then distributed after his death to the next level down, and they had so many fingers in so many pies all over the place across America. Now, Cornelius was the one that started it all off, but it moved down through the generations. I think one of them was even called George Washington Vanderbilt. There was some big characters, some really, really big characters there. But with shipping, the shipping money and the railway money, they built mansions, they had wealth, they had parties, they gave money to charity and were well liked. They weren't some megalomaniac with loads of money trying to conquer everything and become hated because of it. They were well liked. And over 4-5 generations, that wealth grew and grew and grew, until one day the next guy in charge decided to drink it all away. So they had party after party, and the money went down and down, and no new businesses opened until one day their money ran out. And the Vanderbilt family now, not one of them has more than £1 million, whereas at the time they were multi-millionaires. One of the sort of closest relatives that I can find is a guy called Anderson Cooper, and he's a TV presenter over in America. Now, obviously, we won't know him over here, but there might be some Americans that do recognise the name. But quite a difference in job. Now, I've walked over here because I just wanted to show you. This is Charles's grave. Charles's grave is the one at the end with nothing on it at all. Now, there is gravestones for his family, but it's not really as grand as I would have expected it. Anyway, back to Emily. I'm not talking about Charles anymore. I've got a bit of an obsession with Charles and his family because of those medals. I get sidetracked with him because I just think his family was so interesting as well. But Emily had worked within sort of Harvard, the buildings in Harvard and the big house doing all sorts of little jobs, doing stuff that housekeepers do, but also running errands, and had built up quite a large group of friends over in America. She was very, very well liked. She worked within circles, doing all sorts of different things, from needlework to all sorts, really. So when she decided to come back to the UK for a few weeks, the Americans were quite upset. They didn't want her to go, and apparently there was a lot of people that said, oh no, stay, we don't want you to go back, you may never come back. And that was quite strange, because even though she did come back, it wouldn't be for very long. So Emily made her way back on one of the liners, the White Star liners, over to Darfield, well, back over to Liverpool, and then a train from Liverpool back to here. Now, her family's house isn't there anymore. If you follow that road up and turn left and go down the hill, it would have been out down at the bottom of the valley. So there's no real point showing you where she lived, but it wasn't far from here. I also think that she went and visited the Taylors, Charles and her wife, as well, because they were at her funeral. So I think the connection will have still been there. So anyway, she started to feel unwell just before she was due to go back. And she made the decision that rather than hang around here and seek medical care, she decided to go back to America, because I think probably at the time, the American care system would have probably been slightly better than it would be here, especially in places like somewhere like Harvard University, because you'd have had all the good doctors and things like that there. Now, that meant a long trip back to America. So once again, on the train, back on the boat, and I have got a photograph of the boat. I can't think of the name offhand now, but she went over on the boat, and by the time she got there, she was so ill, she had to be taken straight away to the hospital, where she died. And it was appendicitis that killed her. Out of everything that you could think these days that is so treatable, and it was then, like an appendicitis in the early 1900s, yes, poor people probably would have died of it, but the company that she kept, she should have been fine, but it was that journey that did it. Now, obviously the Vanderbilts were absolutely distraught. They were so upset, and because of that, they knew how much that she loved her family. She loved being back in the UK as well, so they decided they would pay for her body to be shipped and brought back to the UK and down past the church, down here, and buried at the grave that we started off at. Now, think about it these days. If you die in a different country, the cost to get your body moved from one place to another is absolutely unbelievable. So back then, it would have been even more, really, because you're having to go on a ship, on a train, and then be brought here probably in some sort of carriage. It's crazy, really, thinking about it. The money that family, the Vanderbilts, spent to make sure she was back with her family. Now, when she came back, there was a little bit of confusion. So when she was buried, there's all sorts of different things that I found. Some that say she was buried in a glass coffin. Now, I can't see that being right, but it could be, because people are occasionally buried in them. But there's then a report of a silver coffin with brass handles that was buried here. Now, that sounds more like it. Shiny silver. Someone may have just seen a glimpse of it and mistaken it for glass because it was so shiny. I don't know. That's just my guess. But apparently, not only was she lowered into the ground in this wonderful silver coffin, all of the Taylors were here, the whole family. Some of the people from America came over with her. There was 2 huge crosses of lilies that were put next to her grave from the Vanderbilt family, and also other smaller offerings from the tailors and other people as well. It was a big do. The whole of the village came out. Everybody in the area knew about it. All the important people came. It would have been absolutely packed, this place. It really would. You can just imagine the procession coming down here slowly, carrying the coffin after they'd been up at the church at the top of the hill, doing the service, bringing her down, laying her to rest. And the big wreaths and crosses would have been laid next to it before this was finally put up for her on her final resting place. Now, like I mentioned earlier, she wasn't the first person to have died. So Sarah, her sister, had already died. So I'm presuming they'd already got a plot here, because it is quite a strange, like, all the important people seem to be up there at the top of that hill. So it seems quite strange that she's down here, but I think that's probably why. And then she was buried in there. Oh no, sorry. Her grandfather was buried in there. Then she was buried in there. And then her mum and dad were buried 20 odd years later in the same grave as well. John and Mary. Now, the good thing about this is there's so many names and so many dates. I'm falling over. So many dates on here that it actually makes it really, really easy to research. So if you guys want to do any more research and tell me any more details, you can. But can you imagine her excitement to be going off to this whole new place, America, away from pit villagers and poor people, and off to somewhere so exciting, full of intelligent people at Harvard. It would have been such an amazing journey for her, and to end in such a sad way is terrible. But at least we can still remember her, and we can still talk about her life. And yes, I don't know as much as I want to. I want to find out more. I want to find photos of her. I can't find a single photo. I thought I had on the little mini video that I did. I put what I thought was a hand-drawn picture of her, but it turned out to be somebody else, and I'm gutted. And that's the thing with, like, searching history. It's so hard sometimes to find things, and it's easy to just jump to conclusions. So if you guys find anything, let me know. Put it on Facebook, send it to matt@findersbeepers.co.uk. And if you like this sort of video, let me know so I can do some more, because actually I've really enjoyed looking into it for you. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time.